Hey, Megan!
Hey.
Hey, everybody, we're back. We're at Lindinhof. It's cold out. Actually, I think it's supposed to be worse later, but why?
Thursday night. She's gonna go to under 30.
Yeah, that's unnecessary.
I did. That's what I said.
That's unnecessary. So yeah, here we are. I traveled to Lindinhof again today, and look who we have. It's the star of Lindinhof. It's Mr. AJ.
Yeah.
He's here to show us all the wonderful things for shoulder in.
Shoulder in.
So before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping we always do. Appreciate anybody who's watching this to, if you're logged in on the old YouTube, give this a thumbs up like. We appreciate that. Hope you're watching it. And with the advertisements on, YouTube likes to get paid. They allow us to do this for free. So it's kind of nice that we allow them to occasionally run some ads. Of course, if you are watching live, or even if you're going to be watching this in demand, if you have questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. You are watching this live, you can leave them in the live chat. Otherwise, leave the comments down below. And I will let Megan know if you've got questions for her so she can log in and answer your questions. But I've also provided information on how to find Megan, as well as a little bit of background information on her as well. USDF certified instructor through 4th level. Hey, buddy. So we're building on some previous, a few previous weeks worth of live streaming, right, Megan?
You bet.
So while we've done a whole variety of topics, obviously, this is part of a large number of videos. We kind of started this, at the beginning of the pandemic?
Yep.
So both of our channels have a playlist together, Equestrian Livestream, where you can watch any of these live streams we've done on demand. Some of them are like here, where I've come to Megan's barn and we're doing some stuff with horses. And the whole first part, because of the pandemic, we kind of just talked online about various subjects, showing and all kinds of good stuff. So if you want to catch those, you can either go to Megan's channel and look at that playlist, Equestrian Live Streams. You can, this channel here, Opinionated Horsewoman, they're all under there as well. So feel free to look at any of them and ask any questions. Like I said, I will let Megan know if you have questions for her. So yeah, so I think, was it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we started with turn on the forehand. Yep, turn on the forehand. And then last week, we kind of showed how that worked its way into doing some leg yield work. And as we promised from the end of last week, here we are again. And it's not snowing, which I appreciate because y'all are crazy. But we're going to be talking about the shoulder in. So Megan, what level does shoulder in appear?
Second level.
Okay. And is it only in second level, or is it in tests beyond second level?
No, it's in 3rd level.
Okay.
And it's in 4th level. And it's in Pre-St. George.
Oh, so.
And it's in I1.
Wow. Okay.
So it's in a lot of levels.
So this is a very important movement, not only obviously as a training aid, but clearly this is going to be in a number of levels and tests.
It is.
Whereas previously last week we were talking about the leg yield. It only shows up at one level, first level, and then it disappears, but not necessarily out of your training program, but it doesn't show up in the test beyond, whereas this one shows up for many, many levels.
It does.
So yeah, Mr. AJ, we're very sorry that we have for a couple of weeks totally confused you and you're a good boy to show us the right and the wrong.
He's perfect. He's got this.
He's got this. Yes, he does. So what do you want to say about, so shoulder in, you said shows up at second level and then goes beyond that. So when do you start kind of playing with and introducing, you know, we'll just say to a young horse, I guess. We'll just go with that.
A young horse. I actually introduced shoulder 4. So okay. Shoulder 4 is a less angle. Like for shoulder in, it's 3 tracks. So what does that mean? So your looking at me, and
yep. So
left straight, you probably only see 2 tracks,
yep.
right?
So we're looking at AJ's legs, and we basically only see his, well, now he's moved, but we really only saw 2 legs. So that's a 2 track.
So this should be like a little shoulder 4.
And if I do this,
you should be able to see his right hind between his 2 front legs.
Yeah, so if I do this, you can see outside hind, then this outside foreleg. You can't see the inside hind leg because it's hidden, and then his inside foreleg. So if I were to, and then there we go. So that's basically showing 3 tracks or 3 legs. And that's me cheating and showing it to you by moving.
But we also want, so that would be for the shoulder in, and then for shoulder 4, you want to see his right hind between the front legs. That's usually what if I'm an instructor and I'm looking in the mirror. Sure. So it's just placing his shoulders a little bit to the inside.
Okay.
Right? And so let's talk about that. So maybe we see dog track. That means like they don't travel straight. Well, horses do the same thing. A lot of times they throw their haunches out to the right, or maybe they drop their left shoulder and they bring their shoulders in, and they don't track with 2 tracks. So you don't see 2 legs. And so in order to strengthen them, to teach them balance, as well as supple them through the rib cage, because let's say they have a stiff side and they have a hollow side. So if you ride the shoulder in to the right, if it's their stiff side, you're going to be suppling that stiff side. So as well as going back to the dog tracking, we straighten them. We're using this exercise to straighten them, and we want to be able to have the same feeling going from left to right. That's most important, and usually one way is easier than the other. And so you might find that, let's say our horse is hollow to the left, it might be much easier to ride the shoulder in to the left, but we have to make sure that it truly is 3 tracks. The bending is consistent from pole to tail.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So we're talking about a young horse, you mentioned they could be stiff, right-handed, left-handed. Mm-hmm. So obviously all horses are going to be handier one direction than the other. I can't imagine that you very often come across a horse that's supple in both directions as a young horse. So
not at all.
When you're introducing this and explaining it to them, do you pick the easy direction? Do you pick the hard direction, or you just whatever comes up? And
well, it depends on their stamina. I think if it's a horse that doesn't have a lot of stamina, I might start with the harder side first. Obviously, the first day, I might start with the easier side. So, like if it's the first day and the horse naturally kind of comes in, why not, encourage them and be positive and show them the easier way. But of course, you're only going for a couple of steps. Don't think I'm going to be teaching shoulder 4, shoulder in today, and you will go and shoulder in from F all the way to M. That's just not right. And sometimes I might actually use the leg yield from the last session. So if it's young horse, I'll ride the leg yield properly, which is parallel to the rail, but maybe those last 3 or 4 steps, depending on the young horse, how their balance is, I'll push the haunches out a little bit. So that way when I get to the rail, the haunches reach the rail first, and then I just keep them going. And so it's not a shoulder in, but it just kind of gives them a feeling of what we're going to ask it, and just being really and I ride them straight. So I might start that way, or if the young horse is relaxed enough, I would ask from the walk. I would always ask from the walk, and I would ride again 3 to 5 steps. I would not go down the entire log side. So
yeah. You're not expecting a 4-year-old to just go out and do Grand Prix?
No, not at all. And maybe at 5 we might start, or but really walk, trot, canter. Are they going sideways in a leg yield comfortably, and then just add in a few steps of shoulder forward.
Yeah, so
definitely not shoulder in. And then the other thing, once they start to get the idea of shoulder forward, I actually would put them in shoulder in, but 4 tracks. Okay, so that's not technical. Like when you show, you never want to show 4 tracks. And also sometimes 4 tracks you can start leg yielding. So I wouldn't stay in the 4 tracks too long. But like us, like I found with myself, like in stretching, if I go just a little bit too far and then I go back to normal, normal's easy, right? Versus, you know, so if you really overextend and all I want to be is right here, so I do too much. And so then I go back and I ask them for 3 tracks. All that, so that you can play around going to the extreme. But again, if you're going to go to the extreme, keep it little, you know, 3 to 5 steps, never the entire long side. And you know, as you progress, it could be monthly, you know, that you just go from F to P once they get a few steps and they're comfortable in it. And then for, I don't know, another month, 2 months, then play, can I go half alongside? So what I like to do too, the other thing, taking another step back, is can I really ride a 10-meter circle? If you can't ride a 10-meter circle, you probably don't want to ride shoulder in, because the first, the first 2 steps of a 10-meter circle is truly a shoulder in. So there, not a good idea to start asking for. And an exercise that I would do if it's a little bit older horse, more advanced, is a 10-meter circle at F, check in. So if the horse is falling in, he's probably going to fall in and then the shoulder in. If he's falling out, he's probably going to fall out through your outside rein. So that 10-meter circle tells you everything about what's going to happen in the shoulder. Another fault is the horse is slowed down. And so you want to push your horse through. And obviously, if they're learning, they're going to slow down because they're trying to figure out their legs. But again, you have to find that right tempo. So I would ride a 10-meter circle, shoulder into B, 10-meter circle, shoulder in again. And it's nice to have those breaks for your horse. And if you have the middle letter, you just go 10-meter circle F, shoulder into P. That's shorter. And so you just grow that until it's an entire long side.
So the necessary, I guess we'll call it skills, horse and rider need to have ability to do skills, whatever you want to call it, figures. They need to be able to successfully ride our set a 10-meter circle.
Well, just taking a step back.
Okay.
Walk, trot, canter.
Okay.
Your horse needs to be reliably on contact, so they have to understand inside leg to outside rein, that diagonal pair of eights. And then they have to understand turning aids. And then the next step is, with those turning aids, they need to be able to ride a 10-meter circle on the bit in a consistent tempo. So there's your progression.
So that obviously requires some athleticism and balance and fit slow.
And a little bit more education. Yeah. So you can't just start it right out of the box. So later down the line. All right, should we walk it?
Yes, ma'am. Where would you like me?
I guess by the morning clock.
All righty.
We'll give AJ a chance
Perfect.
to walk a little bit. Okay, so I guess we'll do it in the, and we need to talk about the aids.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll first show the 10-meter circle. And again, just as you're riding, you know, is he in front of the leg? Is he marching in a steady? Our turn on the 10-meter circle. We apply our inside calf, currently my left leg. With our I weight that left seat bone, my left calf is on, and then I have both my outside knee, and there's my turning aid. So now we're going to turn it in to the shoulder in. So inside leg is on, asking first, I weight my left seat bone, and off we go into our shoulder in. Ideally, we want his hind legs traveling straight, his shoulders about 30 degrees off the track. So now I'll turn across the arena, and then we'll ride the shoulder in coming towards you. If you want to move down. So again, I'll ride a 10-meter circle here at the letter E first, and just check in.
Let me get
Like
position.
how is he bending? the other thing is, when do we ask for the drive? And it's when that inside hind leg leaves the ground that you apply pressure. Now, 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 now. Good. And then you want to make sure you can release. So can you see 3 tracks?
Yes.
It feels a little wobbly to me.
Well, I'm looking through the camera, so.
Okay, and now?
I gotta be careful I don't get car sick.
Yep. So now we wrote a good shoulder in. Should we show a bad shoulder in?
Yes.
I'm a lot of times what happens on the 10-meter circle in our prep, we overbend. So then he falls on the forehand, falls out through the right shoulder. And the same thing happens in our shoulder in. So let's do it with too much bending. And so when we're looking down at the rider, it looks like our horse is bent. But is our horse even close to being in a shoulder in? He probably is straight. I can't see him on the crack in the mirror. But so with this neck bending, he looks like he's in a shoulder in. But the thing of it is, I'll turn across the arena and I'll ride it towards you. It's not what we see, it's what we feel. If we want the bending, you want to move down a step?
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were coming across. Hang on. Do a circle. We're coming.
We want to make sure he's bent in front of the saddle as well as behind the saddle. And then he's bending around side left. So here's with too much neck bending. And so you can see the direction of the shoulder. And now to me, or another rider, it might look like he's bending, but he's not in a shoulder in. And so the correction for that is a little bit more outside rein as you apply the inside leg. And what's important, as you're riding shoulder in, what'll help this, because it's quite common that riders overbend and we think we're doing a good job and they are making an effort. But when you look down at the withers, you want to make sure that he's straight, his neck is straight, that there isn't this little bending right here, that there isn't like a little hinge, because that's where it's not shoulder in. You have to bring the shoulders in, okay? So now, let's do another one. And this one can be called a leg yield or pushing the haunches out. So what we talked about is like, when we start our shoulder in, we're turning the shoulders off the track. But the hind legs should still be traveling straight, right? So now check this out. I'm going to try to go straight first so you can see what I do. And this is very common. So we're straight. And now, what did I do? What moved? The haunches. Instead of the haunches staying on the track, and also notice the hind legs are crossing. The neck is straight like we just talked about, like I wanted, but there really is no bending in the body. I'm going to cut across the arena. And the whole purpose of the shoulder in is suppling. So if our horse is straight through the body, you're not suppling him, right? You're just pushing the haunches over. It's just a leg yield. So this is what it, here, I'll travel straight first so you can see that I move the shoulder, the haunches out, and the shoulders stay on the line. See that?
Yep.
Good. So those are some of the issues. But we're going to go the other way now.
Alrighty. I can stay here for a second.
Yeah, you can stay there. And then you can also see, this might be helpful to see, is there a difference between the shoulder ends from the left to right? There's always an easier way and a harder way. And typically the stiffer side, so I'll ride a 10-meter circle first. All right, our shoulder in. Now he's wiggling. Well, that's another thing I didn't show, is that you want to be consistent. So all of these shoulder ins, I'm going to go the other way, have been consistent. So I'll show you this one coming towards you.
I'm coming.
So we start in the shoulder in, and then we go, this happens, and then you're like, oops, I got to bring it back. And this is actually a great exercise to do with the young horse after they start to understand what a shoulder in is. But can you see how I didn't keep that angle consistent? Ideally, you want to keep that angle consistent. All right. I'm trying to think if there are other. Now it's just in the trot work, when you ride the trot, the slowing down of the tempo. So
Well, show us this direction. Too much angle.
Too much angle?
Yeah. Over angling.
Okay, 4 tracks.
Yep.
All right, so here we are. Woo! And you see 4 legs?
Yeah. And he's almost trying to cross those hind legs.
Yeah, and sometimes there's a purpose. Like if you're teaching your horse, the shoulder for the shoulder in, like I said, there is a purpose to exaggerating it. I mean, obviously you don't want to do it too long because it isn't shoulder in. But when they're not grasping that they need to move the shoulders over, obviously I wouldn't do it that steep. I would do a little less, like here, right? But when you're teaching young horse, you want to take a little bit more angle, but then you want to be able to move it back. And that's a great exercise too, that you can go from 4 tracks to 3 tracks to straight.
So I have a question. I have heard or read or heard or whatever. Some people say the judge's perspective, obviously the judge sits at C, we'll just say one judge at C. Sometimes it's harder for them to tell because of where they sit, either, depending on if you're going away or coming towards them, so whether you're truly showing the correct bend and angle. And so I heard some people say, wow, when you're going in sections, they're towards or away, show a little bit more angle so that it's real obvious to them that you're, so.
That's a good point. When you only have one judge and the judge is at C, it is hard to see that angle. That's something to think about. So maybe you do want to show a little bit more angle, but technically that's not correct. And if you show in a CDI, there's going to be judges in the corners, so it won't matter. That judge that's at M or at H will be able to see whether, or if you go to, if you compete and it's one judge and it's I1, I believe, it's on the center line. So like that's an extremely hard exercise to trot straight on the center line. In literally those hind legs have to travel straight towards the judge. And that's where when learning the shoulder in as a rider or teaching a horse, it's great to have the mirrors because you want to see, are his hind legs traveling straight or not? Because it's so easy to get them to cross. And it may not feel like it. So that small deviation, it can be hard to feel, especially to a novice rider. So the mirrors are so important to watch that.
So we're in a spot here on the arena where we are, almost on the quarter line. You've talked previously, but let's talk about how learning this and doing this consistently on the rail could be a problem.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it's easier to learn it on the rail, of course, because then you have the support of the wall, and the horse will naturally tend to travel straight along the wall. So in learning it, it might be more helpful to ride it along the rail. So that way you get the correct feel. But then from time to time, let's say you have a smaller arena, you may want to come in on the quarter lines and ride your shoulder in on the quarter line because first of all, that forces you to use both your inside and your outside aids. If you're only riding along the rail or a wall, an actual wall, you forget to use your outside aids and you use the support of the wall or that white little fence. So
and those little holes in your abilities start to show up.
They do, yeah.
Places.
When you get to that, actually, I think it first starts out at 4th level. I do believe there is. You have passed from like K to X, and then an X 10-meter circle and then shoulder in on the center line. Well, that's right towards the judge. And so they can see any little deviation, whether you're riding a leg yield, whether you're falling out. It's very easy. And so it's a great exercise. It's a great seat exercise. Not only is it great for your horse, for suppling, engagement, and balance, it's great to test, like, is your seat really steady? Are you really riding a straight line? So yeah, I would definitely move off the wall. Of course, in teaching a young horse, it probably would be best to ride along the rail, on a wall to help support them. So because they are gonna, why would you want to bend? Why would you want to sweat? Why would you want to, because it's just like us when we stretch, it's not very comfortable at first. So you have to remember that, take your time to warm up, walk, trot, canter, 10-meter circles, and of course, if they've never done it before, I can tell you the first time I did yoga, it was not fun. Now, is it great for us? Is it healthy for us? Are there huge benefits? Absolutely. It's the same for our horses.
So is there do you find with the young horses confusion? You've taught them turning the forequarters, you've introduced them. Obviously, we've talked about leg yielding. I mean, horses get confused. They're trying to figure it out. They haven't read the book. They haven't read the manual. They haven't read the training manual, and they're trying to sort out, like, okay, I know turn the forequarters, and I know I've done leg yield. Do you find that they just start throwing things at you because they're like, what?
Because the first thing they learn is, well, on the ground, what's the first thing they learn? I mean, obviously it's low, but the second thing is move away from pressure. So now we're going into our shoulder in, and if we only use our inside leg and we bring them over, what are they going to do? They're going to fall out, and we apply that inside leg, they're moving away from pressure. So we have to make sure that our outside leg is a little bit back guarding, so it prevents, so if I was riding the shoulder in to the right, it prevents them from falling out. Because think about it, we just taught them to turn on the forehand, which would be away from my right leg. They're going to move want to move their haunches to the left. Same thing with the leg yield. So now they have to bend. So that's why it's so important to ride that 10-meter circle, because they really bend around our inside leg. And then you introduce the shoulder in.
Sure.
And yes, there's going to be a ton of confusion. That is also why you only want to ride 3 to 5 steps. Give them a chance to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, so when do you start introducing, I'll call it speed, the next level, trot we talked about? When do you feel, okay, we're good, like it's successful at the walk, we can actually attempt this at the trot?
I play around with it, like right away, actually. I mean, like I said, like I might be riding a leg yield in the trot, and the last few steps I push the haunches over or out, and then when I get to the track, the haunches get there first, and then I try to maintain that. I keep my weight over to the inside, I keep my hands to the inside. So I might start at the same time I ask in the walk, and I just go back and forth between walk and trot.
They don't even know they're doing it. You just trick them right into it.
He's so confused.
Yeah, he's like, what are we doing?
He's like, what is happening? Why aren't we working?
He's like, we work, and then we stand here, and she's talking to this lady who has something in her hand. So, okay, so yeah. All right, so moving into the trot, do you do the same thing? You showed us here, you start on a 10-meter circle, in the walk, and
yeah.
So
I would do the same thing. Now he's been standing a little bit, so
yeah, go walk a little bit.
Move him about a little bit, and then we'll try. Now he might not be so fresh. I did warm him up before our walk warm up, but now he's a little bit like, what?
Half asleep. We lulled him into. And then once you show us a couple good each direction, I guess we probably should screw them all up and show some bad. Which could be what? Leg yield, I guess?
Well, all of the above.
Yeah. Maybe we'll show you weaving all over and not maintaining a track.
I worked so hard to get it right.
everybody. We're zooming. Sorry, everybody.
All right. Now I'll show you two steep of angle.
All right, I got to catch up to you.
Actually, let's show you too much bend.
Okay.
You can see he drops, he falls out. So when I pull too much on that inside rein, you can see the quality of the trot change, as well as the height of his pull. So there we go. He gets flat, and his pull drops. So this can happen too. Of course, you can pick up the canter, the inner shoulder, and take a break. Now this is too steep, so he really kind of slows down and gets flat. That's the way. I know. So too steep of angle. Ooh, he really got flat there. See that difference?
You know, it's funny because we still see the 3-track.
Oh, I didn't go wide enough.
Not quite.
Sorry.
He definitely had a lot more bend in his neck, so you know you could see that for sure. But he was being very honest in his 3-track.
And so I'm going to change. So go ahead. We're going to go to the right now.
Oh, okay. So let's see here.
All right. So now we'll show some. Oh, I know what happened. I'm just thinking back to a lesson where there's not enough inside leg. So let's do that.
Is that the wandering moves? We'll see.
Wait. Wait. See how he comes off the wall?
Yep.
You never want your horse to come off the wall. Oh, come on now. Because then it tells you you're not using enough inside leg. All right, what was I doing? Off the wall.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, you're way over there. Yeah.
All right. Now we'll do one where he just quits, because now that's kind of what's happening.
Poor guy.
He's like, I don't know what you're doing, lady. So this can happen. Whoop. So you want to make sure you're pressing in a rhythm when that inside hind leg comes off the ground. And you're pushing him into the bridle. So you can see the difference in the circles when I get him up balanced in front of my leg. And then you go to your shoulder in.
So what happens when you drop the outside rein?
Ooh. You see how he quit? Ooh. What was your question?
So let's see somebody who's obsessed with the inside bend and is pulling on the inside rein and just loses the outside rein.
Didn't we already show you that?
You showed us like pulling, but not necessarily like just dropping the outside.
Oh. Okay.
Just do it and walk. Poor AJ. Poor guy's gonna be like, what? We're coming. Because you know, I think sometimes amateurs are like, oh my God, bend, 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 and they're so obsessed.
He just quit.
Yep.
That's what happens. He's just like, what? You can see his steps are hesitant. There is no bend in his body. He's just,
Yep.
And then the line, we lose our line. Oh, I can't do it. It's too hard for me.
There's no control, right?
I can't. I'm losing control. All right, we'll do one more.
All right, I'm coming. I'm coming. Getting my steps in, Megan.
I know.
It's good stuff.
So here he's just kind of, and see how that line isn't straight anymore. So you want to make sure.
It's almost like a really bad leg heel.
Yeah, you got it.
From last week, guys.
Right, now it's good.
Yes. Yes, please. So let's talk about those type of errors and correcting them.
Well, I did within it.
Yep. Obviously dropping the outside rein, you picked it right back up.
So shoulder in, inside leg, outside rein. Right?
So the hind legs are traveling straight, the shoulder comes to the inside, hence shoulder in. Get my steps in, guys.
Good.
So you know what? I'm going to stand where the judge would stand or sit. Well,
the other way.
Even though we're actually at A, I would pretend this is C. So can you show them like second level test 1, the shoulder in movements in the trot? So this is the angle the judge would see, everybody.
I'll do first back. And now 3. So you can see the difference in the carriage. That's why it's important to ride the 3 tracks for balance. So like, yeah, you can think about the judge and the angle, but the judge is trained.
Yes.
The judge does know to look and knows about the angle. However, when you go too steep of an angle, the tempo slows down and you lose your balance. So, and then you're going to get knocked down for lightness, harmony, uphill carriage, not only the movement. So I wouldn't go for 4 tracks, I would go for 3 and really ride my horse in an uphill carriage.
Don't cheat. There's no reason to. The judges are trained and they know.
They know. They do know. So yeah, that's shoulder in.
So can you show us shoulder, somebody who is not showing true shoulder in a test? Can you trot and pretend you're faking your way through a second level test and it's really only barely shoulder 4?
Didn't we already do that?
Not in trot though.
Okay.
But just because I'm going to stand here where the judge would be, you know, everybody just got to see you do it properly.
Okay.
And so let's show what the judge is going to see where you're really not even barely showing. You know, a hint of it. Maybe somebody's not really ready to show at second level and is pushing it. So it's more of like a barely shoulder 4. So she's trying, but you can just see from here, it's not truly the 3 tracks. And the judge is going to see that.
Good. I think that's good.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything we haven't, covered. We've talked about mistakes, dropping, pulling, not using legs, using too much leg, using not enough leg, too much rein, not enough rein, over bending and all that.
Yeah, I think as a rider, when things aren't going well, let's say the horse stops or slows down, this was a good example. Maybe think I have too much angle, or I am bending my horse too much because he really got behind my leg in those exercises when they weren't ridden correctly. And so I think what's the takeaway as you're learning it is if you're not getting it, if there isn't an ease to it, and your horse is physically okay and capable of doing the job, you are physically okay and capable of doing the job. You're just learning how to do it. Keep experimenting. Maybe play with the angle. Maybe you're too much angle. Maybe you're not enough angle. Maybe you're pulling too much with that inside rein and you're losing the balance. So that way the horse doesn't have the ease to be able to even perform the movement. So that's something to think about. Always search within yourself, is it going well? Is this correct? Yeah, and watch a lot of videos,
and have somebody videotape you as well,
that
right?
would be really good because then, like USDF has through the levels, I think is what it's called, and so you can actually see tests and see how they should ideally be performed. There's so many videos on YouTube, such as this one.
Well, you did.
And then you video yourself and compare the two videos.
Didn't you do some this last, like late winter, early spring? Do some different videotapes you put online, a little here, a little there?
Yeah, I thought it was really helpful. One of my clients likes to watch different tests, and I thought it might be helpful to watch her own horse go. So I rode the horse through the test, and then I started riding other clients' horses through the test because a lot of times what happens is the clients show the horses. Obviously, they should. It's a lot of money, and it's their horse. However, I learned so much going through the test because I rarely ride the horses through the test. I'm working on training here at home, and I was like, oh, they get in patterns. Riders get in patterns. Horses get in patterns. As soon as you go down, they know it's a test. And so it was extremely helpful. And actually, one of my students, I would ride her horse the Saturday or the first day of the horse show, and she would ride her horse the second day of the horse show. And that horse had a particular problem of going into the arena, and we call it turtling. He just would suck back. And he's a very forward going horse. He has thoroughbred in him. He loves to go forward. But I think it had to do a little bit with her show nerves and going to the next level. And so he was just becoming very insecure. And so the show season was very successful with helping him overcome that. The scores may not have represented it, but it didn't really matter because then their last horse show, he was very bold and she was more confident. And so that's how we did that. So it was very helpful to ride those videos because we get into the patterns.
So let's talk about what comes after shoulder in. Once you start learning to move, you've kind of moved the rib cage around, you're moving the shoulders around. There's other things come from this.
Yes, the next one that I personally start with is haunches in. And so I like to say it's the last two steps of a 20-meter circle is a haunches in that you can continue down the long side. The last two steps of a 10-meter circle is our haunches in. And so then we would play around with in both directions. Can I have the same degree of bending, bringing my horse's haunches to the inside? And then once my horse is proficient at shoulder in and haunches in, then I would move to baby half passes, which is, I've heard many things that it is haunches in on a diagonal line. It's a version of shoulder in, haunches in.
Yep, I've heard all that.
And so, yeah, we would play with half pass, which is similar to leg yield if you watch that YouTube video of our horses moving sideways. However, our horse is bent in the direction he's going. He's also bending through his body. There's a level of engagement, and through that balance, we want him to come more uphill.
Yeah. So, you're not only just teaching them, obviously, to listen to your aids, but you're starting to gymnasticize the body to be able to kind of bend and flex and all this, because all these little things get harder and harder. Not only do they have to, you mentioned obviously incorrect bending through the neck, but you mentioned bending through the rib cage, so to speak, but they need to start having more flexibility in the hind legs. It's hard when you start asking them to start crisscrossing and bringing the legs under.
And we're strengthening them. We're being able to adjust the top line. We are also wanting the haunches, the hind legs come more under themselves, and the pelvis, actually, we want the pelvis to tilt slightly back, so it elongates our top lines. All of those things are happening.
The power in the engine behind, you want the power in the engine at work, not dragging them around over their front end. I've read many interviews with some of the top riders in the world, for the last decades and decades, right? And a lot of them say, once that shoulder in is confirmed, they almost live in shoulder forward to shoulder in at any point.
After
they don't really travel.
Pretty much shoulder forward.
They don't really travel ever really straight until they're actually at a horse show where they have to.
Yep.
Just constantly reminding that inside leg to go under. And when we should probably explain
for the horses, it's also for the riders that we constantly ride inside leg to outside rein.
Yeah, we should probably explain what we mean by the inside leg coming under, because and are you good to be done with him?
Yeah, he's done.
So because there's the understepping forward under, but I think we're also talking about stepping under, but more towards like their inner center of gravity, which would be more towards the center of their body.
Yeah.
So people may not quite understand that. I mean, people who've been doing the sport for a while do, but somebody on YouTube who's new to the sport we want to make that differentiation, what you're saying when we're throwing these phrases out here, bringing the hind legs under. Truly, you just mentioned, inside leg to outside rein, and truly that's kind of what you mean. Yes, coming forward under the body, but also coming a little more towards the inside of their
middle line.
Balanced middle line.
Yeah.
So hi buddy. Cool. So well, thank you. So that would move into punches in, you said.
Yeah.
So assuming you don't get a blizzard up here in this fabulous Wisconsin, are we going to try that next week?
We could try punches in next week.
You're no more horse show concerns? Okay. So
Cool.
So once again, we'll have to say, everybody, thank you to those who are watching this on demand, and feel free to leave any questions you have in the comments below via YouTube. Megan's information for her YouTube channel, it's Lindinhof 1, it's down below, or you can, obviously find the rest of the playlist here, either on this channel, Opinionated Horsewoman, or Megan has the playlist as well on her channel, Lindinhof 1. But Megan, AJ is the star here. Yep. And how do his fans, how do they get a hold of him?
They can call him 608-445-8531. They can check out his website. It's lindinhof.com. You can email him at lindinhofllc@gmail.com, or he's on Facebook at Lindinhof Equine Sports Central.
Nice.
Check him out. He loves to talk to people.
I heard he is working on publishing a 2021 calendar. Is that true?
Oh, yes, he is.
Oh.
Definitely. I think this might be the 4th or 5th version of it.
Ooh, very nice, very nice. So, yeah, so so if they have questions, they can comment below or get a hold of you in any of those means, social media you gave.
That'd be great.
And yeah,
Thank you for coming.
hopefully we will see everybody back next week, Tuesday, again, same time, 7 p.m. Central Time. Tuesdays is what we kind of been working on. So,
all right,
thanks, AJ. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Steph.
Bye, everybody.